away, or it's mine. Make sure you have the correct examination paper. Identification on the top left-hand side. The time now is 8:20 and the exam starts now.
This situation may feel familiar to a lot of you. That's because it's pretty normal for most high schools around the world. But do you believe that this kind of atmosphere inspires passion or care for the environment, or is going to want to make kids get up and take action? I personally don't really think so. So imagine there's a young girl going to public school in America, and one day she learns about bees and colony collapse because of pesticide use, and she really wants to do something to help them. So she goes to her science teacher and she asks for his help. But he tells her to focus on the upcoming biology test instead, and the idea dies and nothing is done to help the poor bees.
This isn't what learning should be like, right?
Well, at least we don't think so. Hello, my name is Daisy, and I'm a student activist. And we strongly believe that education has the power to incite passion and care into students. But to do this is not easy, and it takes a lot of hard work and care from everyone involved. But I promise you the hard work will pay off, and it is possible. Even us just standing in front of you today is a living example that this kind of education can be a reality.
This is Green School. It's set on the island of Bali in Indonesia, and it's made completely out of bamboo. There are no walls here, and due to its jungle-like setting, students have become accustomed to seeing lizards, snakes, even chickens running through during lessons. But, as you can probably imagine, creating a school like this was a major risk, not only for its founders, John and Cynthia Hardy, but for the families that made them move here as well. We don't use textbooks. Instead, we focus on teaching relevant lessons. And all of the families that have made the move to this progressive education system have found it to be well worth it.
Hi, I'm Ruby, and since the founding of Green School in 2008, my family have always dreamt of moving to Bali. We've always been inspired and empowered by the youth of the school who have become youth environmental leaders themselves. We had to consider a lot of risks, including the fact that we were moving to an entirely different country with an entirely different culture, and it's commonplace to see 8 people squeezed onto one motorbike. We also had to consider the fact that we're moving to an entirely different education system, where footwear isn't required. So this year in 2016, my family decided to take the leap of faith and move to Bali. To put in perspective of how drastic the change was for us, was that I came from a private Catholic girls' school in the right-wing suburb of Camberwell in Melbourne, Australia. I learnt the basic subjects there and the usual HSC to be accepted into university, but it's nothing compared to what I am learning at Green School. In the short 3 months I've been at Green School, I've been inspired to become a youth environmental leader myself. And some of the most empowering classes I have taken so far include the psychology of climate change deniers, the philosophy of solving climate change, and chemistry focusing on the rising acidity in the oceans. These lessons are not taught through textbooks. They're taught through real and current events and teachers' real passions. This is a risk in itself, and everyone at Green School, including my family, would say that risk-taking is a key element in inciting youth passion and encouraging people to become the change.
Now, we don't want you to feel like you need to come to Green School in order for this education system to be a reality to you. It could happen anywhere. Education has the ability to empower youth. And although it can be unpredictable and even messy at times, since we don't follow the norm of standardized testing, we're able to get our hands dirty here, focusing on real-world problems and teaching relevant lessons. I mean, look at us here, in Marrakech, Morocco, at the GYN conference. This was only made possible for us because a group of students last year were inspired by a class that they took.
After taking a class called Confronting Climate Change Deniers and other climate-based classes in school last year, a group of students formed a group called GS Green Generation to go to the COP21 in COP11 in Paris last year. And we worked really hard to make it happen. And the hard work definitely paid off. I know for me, I learned more there than I could have in 8 weeks in any classroom. But once we got back to Bali, we knew we had to keep the mission alive. And since then, we've gone to conferences and presented at schools all across Indonesia. We even went to Kalimantan to see with our own eyes the destruction and deforestation that's happening there. GS Green Generation has only been able to grow because we have had opportunities to build off our passions. On that note, do you remember the young girl I was talking about earlier in this presentation? The one that really cared about bees?
Hello. My name is Luba. Do you guys know why bees are important? If you don't, bees pollinate 1/3 of all of our foods. That is a lot. And if you don't believe me, believe the words from Albert Einstein. He said, if bees die off the surface of the earth, man only has 4 years left to live. I've grown up in the United States for most of my life, and I never really connected with nature, nor was I really interested in it. But once I moved to Bali, I took a class called Bee Time. In that class, I found out that bees are the most important pollinators in the world, but that they were being killed. Once I found that out, I wanted to do something. I researched in Bali to see if there are any projects that were helping the bees, but I found out that there really weren't any. So that's when I decided to do something. I started my own project called BEEP, Bee Education Environment Project. It educates and raises awareness about why bees are important and why we need them. During this process, I have put some beehives into our own school and taught kids about climate change, deforestation, and pesticide use. We wrote a book with the kids to help raise awareness, but I have also been going around Indonesia talking at other conferences. I'm only one example of student-driven learning. Students must be able to drive their own learning and have the space to do so if you want them to create effective change.
If you want to incite passion and care into students, it is vital to make the lessons you teach in the classroom relevant to our everyday lives. Forget textbooks. Teach from current events and news. Teach about things like climate change, something that is already affecting every single one of us. Always make sure to teach the whole child so that there is room for us to grow emotionally as well as mentally, especially when dealing with heavy topics such as climate change. And always remember that youth are not the problem, but we are the solution, and that we can do things.
So how does a group of 30 students end up in Morocco to attend this conference? We're in school right now. We're getting credit for being here. How did 2 young girls create a solution to ban plastic bags throughout Bali and share their message through a TED Talk? Because of bye-bye plastic bags, the governor of Bali has now agreed to have plastic bags banned in Bali by 2018. How does a graduating class go from acknowledging the transportation issue at our school to creating an enterprise that has buses that run entirely on biodiesel converted from used cooking oil? The BioBus now has 3 buses that transport kids to and from school every day. So how does this happen? It happens when you have an education system that allows us to take risks.
That allows us to break away from standardized tests.
That allows us to teach to the whole child and foster care for the environment.
To allow students to drive their own learning.
It allows us to be here at the GYM conference. We know education influences change, so we need to make change now. We aren't going to make change sitting in classrooms, restricted traditional learning. If we can do it,
You can do it.
Class dismissed!